"Ma'am, step away from the vehicle." Loretta didn't move fast enough. The officer grabbed her arm hard. I said, "Step away." "Sir, I'm just picking up my daughter." Hands behind your back. Parents froze in the pickup line. Children watched from the sidewalk. A little girl in a pink backpack started to cry. She was 7 years old. She was watching her mother get handcuffed in front of her school. "You're being detained for failing to comply." Loretta said nothing. She knew better than to say anything. The metal clicked shut around her wrists. When a black woman gets handcuffed in a school pickup line for doing absolutely nothing wrong, that is not a mistake. That is a message. And everybody standing in that parking lot heard it loud and clear. I'm Aaron, and I find the stories that power buries on purpose. This happened in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, a mid-sized city sitting between Raleigh and the coast. The kind of place where everybody knows somebody, where the school bells still ring at 3:15 and parents line up in their cars along Sunset Avenue, waiting for the dismissal wave. Loretta had parked in the same spot she used every Tuesday. She walked to the sidewalk the same way she always did. Nothing was different about that afternoon. Nothing except the new officer on duty, who decided. She looked like a problem officer. Dwight Callahan had been on the force for 8 months. He was 26 years old. He had written 3 complaints against him already. None of them had gone anywhere. But here is the part. Nobody in that parking lot was ready for when Callahan reached into Loretta's jacket to find her ID. His hand stopped moving. The police department here has not changed much in over a decade. The same families keep moving up through the ranks. Promotions happen behind closed doors. Pensions get protected. Mistakes get filed away. The chief retires. And somebody who looks just like him gets the chair. Sunset Avenue Elementary School sits right on the line between 2 worlds. On one side of the school, you have older homes with porches and oak trees, working families, mostly black grandmothers, still walk kids home in the afternoon. On the other side, you have newer houses out by the bypass, bigger lawns, 2 cars in every driveway. The school board pushed both neighborhoods into one district 6 years ago. They held a press conference. They called it progress. The parents knew what it really was. It was a way to keep the funding even and the policing uneven. 3 years before this story begins, Rocky Mount PD launched something called the Safe Dismissal Program. The flyer said it was for the kids officers in the pickup line, traffic checks at the curb, friendly faces in uniform. That was the story they sold. The city council. The truth was different. The truth was that safe dismissal became a place where officers ran informal ID checks, where parents got pulled aside for cracked taillights and expired tags, where mostly one kind of parent kept getting stopped, and mostly the other kind kept driving through in the 18 months before that Tuesday afternoon. 14 formal complaints had been filed against officers in the safe dismissal program. 11 of those came from black parents. Not one of them led to any officer being punished. Not a single suspension. Not a single retraining. Not a single sit-down. The complaints were typed up, stamped received, and dropped into a folder inside the district's community affairs office. That folder sat in a filing cabinet on the 2nd floor. The drawer it lived in had a label on it that said, "Pending review." It had been pending for 3 years. The man who built this whole program is named Deputy Chief Norbert Fain. He is 58 years old. He has been on the force for 31 years. He has a corner office with a window that looks out at the courthouse. He has 3 commendations on his wall and a framed photo of himself shaking hands with the governor. He designed safe dismissal. He picked every officer assigned to it. He approved every uniform and every clipboard and every traffic cone. In 3 years, he has not once stood out in that school parking lot at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He has never had to see what the program actually looks like at street level, and that brings us back to Officer Callahan. Because here is the thing. Callahan didn't wake up that morning planning to handcuff a mother in front of her daughter. He didn't have a personal grudge against Loretta. He had never met her. What Callahan represents is something bigger than him. He represents a department that trained him to see certain people as a problem before they even opened their mouths. Nobody had to tell him directly. The culture did the teaching. 8 months on the job, and he had already absorbed every lesson that mattered. Loretta Sims was 44 years old that fall. She had been a single mother for 7 years. Her husband Cornelius had a heart attack at 41. He was unloading groceries from the trunk. He sat down on the curb and never got back up. Loretta found him that way. She did not scream, she just sat down next to him and held his hand until the ambulance came. Brianna was barely walking back then. She does not remember her father's voice. Loretta sings to her sometimes in the kitchen. Songs Cornelius used to sing, hoping something inside Brianna remembers even if her mind cannot. Their life is small and steady. Loretta drives a 2016 Honda Accord with a crack in the rear bumper she has been meaning to fix for 2 years. She has not gotten around to it because something else always needs the money first. Brianna's school shoes, the light bill, the brakes on the front passenger side, the crack stays. She packs Brianna's lunch the night before so the mornings move faster. She lays out the next day's clothes on the dresser. She irons her work jacket on Sunday nights with the iron her mother gave her in 2002. Every Tuesday she has to be at the school by 2:55. Tuesday is early release day. Brianna's after-school program does not run on Tuesdays. So Loretta works around it. She moves her meetings, she takes the long lunch, she drives to Sunset Avenue and parks in the same spot she has parked in for 3 years, right under the big sweet gum tree. The shade keeps. The car cool. Brianna can see the spot from her classroom window. She waves sometimes if her teacher lets her, to everyone in that pickup line. Loretta looks like any other tired mother. That is the part nobody understands yet. Her clothes are plain. Her jacket is plain. Her hair is pulled back. She does not wear jewelry to work, besides a thin gold chain. Her grandmother left her. She drives a normal car. She lives in a normal house on a normal street. She is invisible by design, and the only thing she carries that says anything different about her is a small laminated card. It is tucked inside the inner pocket of her work jacket. It has a city seal on it and a photo ID number. Her name is on it in small letters. There is a title underneath the name. She has carried that card in that pocket for 6 years. She used to pull it out when something happened. She used to show it. She stopped a long time ago because she got tired of watching people's faces change when they saw it. What Loretta has lost over the years is hard to name. It is the version of herself that could just stand in a line at the bank without doing math in her head. It is the version of herself that could walk into a store without watching the cameras follow her. It is the version of herself that could exist in public without a backup plan. She lost that piece by piece, not all it. Once the handcuffing in front of the school was not the first time something like this had happened to her, not even close, but it was the first time it happened where her daughter could see it. That is a different kind of wound. Loretta has one. Person at work who knows the full picture of what she does and what she can do. Her name is Nadine Cruz. Nadine is 51. She is the city's Director of Administrative Records. She has been at her desk in the city government building for 19 years. She knows where every file is buried. She has been waiting 2 years for Loretta to make a move on something. She has been quietly seeing in the records. Nadine is patient. Nadine is also done. Waiting officer Dwight Callahan came to Rocky Mount from a small town outside Wilson, North Carolina. He went through the academy in 11 months. He graduated in the middle of his class. His instructors wrote that he was eager to enforce. That is the kind of thing people write on a young officer's review when they cannot think. Have anything better to say. He got assigned to patrol for his first 3 months, then he got moved into safe dismissal. He thought the school assignment was a step down. The officers around him told him it was actually the opposite. It was a proving ground. It was where you built your reputation. In his first 8 months, 3 complaints had already been filed against him. 2 of them came from black women over 40. Both involved what the complaint forms called aggressive language during traffic stops. One of the women said he had reached into her car. The other said he had pulled her by her wrist. Both complaints were marked resolved informally. That phrase shows up over and over again in Rocky Mount PD's records. It does not mean what most people think it means. It does not mean the officer apologized. It means the file was closed without anything happening. Callahan was not a man with a deep hatred in his heart. That is the harder truth. He was a young man who had figured out very quickly that nothing he did was going to follow him. He had been told without anyone ever saying it directly that assertive officers got promoted and hesitant officers got left behind. That was the lesson. Safe dismissal taught. Be loud, be quick. Trust your gut. Do not back down. If a complaint comes in, do not worry about it. Somebody upstairs will make it go away. The man making it go away was Deputy Chief Norbert Fane. Fane is the real villain in this story. Not Callahan. Callahan was. Tool Fane was the hand holding the tool Fane had built. Safe dismissal as part of his long game. He had been quietly running for higher office for years without announcing it. In 14 months, he was planning to file paperwork for the city council. His campaign slogan was already drafted on a napkin in his desk drawer. It said, "Safe families, strong Rocky Mount." His donor list was already half built. He had been collecting goodwill from certain neighborhood associations for years. Safe dismissal was the engine of that goodwill. Tough on disorder, friendly to families. The right kind of policing for the right kind of people. The secondary villain in this story is named Lieutenant Cecily Brandt. She is 47 years old. She was the watch commander on duty the afternoon Loretta got handcuffed when Callahan called in the detention from his radio in the parking lot. Brandt had the full authority to tell him to stop. She had the power to say release her now. She did not. She told him to follow procedure and continue. She knew exactly who was in that parking lot. She had seen the name come across her screen. She made a choice at that moment. She chose to let it play out. Brandt and Fane go back 9 years. He wrote a letter for her in 2017 that got her promoted out of patrol and into command. She has never forgotten that. Her name is on every memo. That buried a safe dismissal complaint. Her signature is on the rerouting paperwork. She is not just a bystander in this story. She is a load-bearing wall. Without her, Fane's system does not hold up. What Fane ultimately gets out of all of this is simple. He gets to be the man who keeps the city safe. He gets to walk into a Rotary Club lunch and have people stand up and shake his hand. He gets his name on a campaign sign 2 years from now. That reputation, that respect, that quiet power is worth more to him than any single complaint, more than any single mother, more than any single 7-year-old girl in a pink backpack standing on a sidewalk watching her mom get cuffed. Now we go back to that Tuesday afternoon. Because we have to walk through what actually happened, slowly, the way it really happened. After the cuffs went on, Callahan did not let Loretta stand where the other parents could see her face. He walked her around the side of the building. He put her up against the red brick wall by the kindergarten entrance. He did not explain the charge beyond failure to comply. He did not let her say one word to Brianna. He did not let her wave. He did not let her tell her daughter it was going to be okay. Brianna stood on the curb where Loretta had left, her pink backpack on her shoulders. Light-up sneakers with the laces double-knotted. She was 7 years old. She did not move. For 4 minutes, she just stood there. She did not cry. She did not call out. She did not run to anyone. She just watched. There was a teacher's aide on duty that afternoon. His name is Festus Okafor. He's a quiet man from Wilson County. He had been working at the school for 6 years. He saw Brianna standing alone. He walked over and crouched down next to her. Instead of picking her up or ushering her inside, he just stood beside her on that curb. He held her hand so she wouldn't have to be alone. He waited with her. He had no idea who Loretta was. He had no idea what was about to come of any of this. He was just being kind to a child who needed somebody. Remember that name, Festus Okafor. He matters later. Other people in the line were watching too. One of them was a parent named Sylvia Drummond. She is a white woman in her late 30s. She drives a navy blue SUV. 2 kids of her own at the school. She picked up her phone when she saw the cuffs go on, and she filmed 47 seconds of what was happening. Then she put her phone away. She did not get out of her car. She did not say a word to the officer. She did not walk over to Brianna. She just kept the video. She drove home with it. She did not know yet what she was going to do with it. She would figure that out later. 8 minutes after Callahan called it in, Lieutenant Brandt rolled up in a marked SUV. She got out. She walked over to Callahan. He handed her Loretta's driver's license. He handed her the laminated card he had pulled out of the inner pocket of Loretta's jacket. Brandt looked at the license first. Then she looked at the card. Her face changed. Anybody who has worked in city government for 20 years knows that look. It is the look of somebody whose stomach just dropped out from under them. She did not say a word to Loretta. She turned around. She walked 10 feet away. She pulled out her phone. Her hand was shaking so hard she dropped the phone twice before she could make the call. We are not going to tell you who she called yet. We are not going to tell you what was on that card yet. Just remember her hand. Remember the shaking 11 minutes after the cuffs went on. They came off, no apology, no explanation. Callahan said only, "You're free to go." Then he turned around and walked back to his cruiser. He did not look at Brianna. He did not look at the other parents. He did not look at Festus Okafor standing on the curb. He drove away. Loretta walked over to her daughter. She picked her up. She carried her to the car even though Brianna had not been carried in 2 years. She buckled her into the back seat. She got in the driver's seat. She started the engine. She drove 3 blocks. Then she had to pull over. She did not cry. She put the car in park. She put her hands flat on the steering wheel. She sat there for 6 full minutes. Brianna sat quiet in the back. Then Loretta picked up her phone. She called one person, Nadine Cruz. She said 4 words. Pull everything. All of it. Nadine Cruz did not need permission. That is the part Fane never understood about her. He had spent 31 years building a department where you had to ask before you could move. Nadine had spent 19 years inside a different department, one that ran on its own rules. The Office of Administrative Records did not answer to the police chief. It answered to the city charter. And the city charter said Nadine had legal access to every administrative document the city had ever produced. Every email, every memo, every signed form, every audit trail. That same night after Loretta's phone call, Nadine drove back to the city government building. She used her badge to get into her office on the 3rd floor. She turned on her desk lamp. She did not turn on the overhead lights. She did not want anybody from the parking lot to know she was up there. She opened her computer. She started pulling files. She pulled the full records archive for safe dismissal going all the way back to the program's launch in March of 2021. She pulled every single complaint, every dismissal memo, every reassignment letter. She pulled the original budget authorization. She pulled the implementation plan. She pulled the personnel rosters. She pulled the training manuals. She had access to all of it, because somebody 6 years ago had written her access into the city code, and nobody had ever thought to take it away. She had been keeping a private list for 18 months. anomalies she had noticed in the safe dismissal records, things that did not add up, complaints that came in one door and went out another, names that appeared in one log and never in the next. She had never told anybody about this list, not even Loretta. She had been waiting until she had enough. Now she had it 2 nights later. Loretta drove to Nadine's house after she put Brianna to bed. Her sister was watching the baby monitor. Loretta brought a thermos of coffee and a yellow legal pad. Nadine had 3 boxes of documents stacked on her dining room table. They sat down across from each other. They started reading for 3 nights they read. They cross-referenced complaints to dispatch logs. They matched officer names to shift schedules. They tracked who had signed what and when. They made spreadsheets. They highlighted lines in yellow and orange and pink. They drank cold coffee. They ate crackers out of the box because neither of them wanted to stop and cook. And somewhere in the middle of the second night, Loretta hit her wall. She pushed back from the table. She walked into Nadine's kitchen. She put her hands on the counter. Her shoulders dropped. Her head went down. She did not cry. She just stood there. Nadine watched her from the dining room. She did not say anything. She let her have the minute. What Loretta was thinking about in that minute was Brianna. She was thinking about how her daughter had not asked one single question about that day. Not one not on the drive home. Not at dinner. Not at bedtime. Brianna had just gone quiet. The kind of quiet that takes years to come back from. And Loretta was wondering if all this paperwork on Nadine's table was worth it. If chasing the men who did this was worth what it was going to cost her daughter to watch her chase them. She thought about her mother, Odessa, who had stopped fighting a long time ago. Maybe Odessa had been right. Maybe the safer thing was to just keep your head down and your child close and let the system run its course. She stood at that counter for almost 4 full minutes. Then she turned around. She walked back to the dining room table. She sat down, she picked up her pen, and she said one sentence to Nadine. "We're not stopping." Nadine nodded once. They kept reading on the 3rd night. They found it. The golden clue had been hiding in plain sight for 6 years. It was not in any of the complaint files. It was not in any of the dispatch logs. It was in the original budget authorization for safe dismissal, filed with the Rocky Mount City Council in March of 2021, a public document. A document any citizen could have walked into City Hall and asked for. Nobody had ever asked on page 7 of that budget authorization, under the heading Program Oversight. There was a single paragraph. It listed the position responsible for reviewing all officer conduct complaints inside the safe dismissal program. That position, by law, had the authority to recommend suspension, reassignment, or termination of any officer in the program. And that recommendation did not have to go through the normal chain of command. It bypassed the deputy chief entirely. It bypassed the chief. It went straight to the city manager and the mayor. The position listed on page 7 was the office of the police commissioner. The card she carried in the inner pocket of her work jacket for 6 years. The card she stopped showing people because she got tired of watching their faces. Change Loretta Sims is the acting police commissioner of Rocky Mount. She has held that title since 2019. The position was created by a city charter amendment in 2018 after a reform coalition pushed through changes following an excessive force settlement that cost the city $740,000. The reformers wanted a civilian oversight role with real teeth. They wrote the position into the charter so it could not be moved or shrunk or absorbed by the department. They built it to sit outside the chain of command on purpose so somebody like Fain could not bury it. Fain knew about the position. He had to. He was the one who listed the commissioner's office as the oversight authority on page 7 of the budget authorization. He did it because he believed the position would stay ceremonial. He believed the commissioner would never actually pick up the phone. He believed nobody in that office would have the nerve, or the knowledge, or the paperwork, to ever use what was sitting right there in the charter. He was wrong for 6 years. For 3 more evenings, Loretta and Nadine cross-referenced the 14 buried complaints against the dispatch logs they found. That in 9 of the 11 cases involving black parents, the complaints had been rerouted away from the commissioner's office. They had been filed directly into the Community Affairs folder. They had skipped the legal oversight chain entirely. Each rerouting carried a signature on the form, the same signature. 9 times in a row, Cecily Brandt Loretta drafted a document on her work computer. It was titled Notice of Investigative Review. She drafted it under the authority granted to her office in the 2021 Safe Dismissal Budget Authorization. Nadine notarized it the next morning at her desk. Loretta sent it by certified mail on a Thursday afternoon. She CC'd the city attorney. She CC'd the mayor's office. She CC'd the Nash County Register of Deeds. The notice scheduled a mandatory appearance for Norbert Fain, Cecily Brandt, and Dwight Callahan, Conference Room B, City Hall. Tuesday morning, 12 days after the parking lot. She did not warn anybody it was coming. Conference Room B is on the 2nd floor of Rocky Mount City Hall. The room has a long oak table, fluorescent lighting in the ceiling that hums if you sit there long enough. A city seal mounted on the wall behind the head chair, plastic water pitchers on a side table, 8 leather chairs around the table. It is the room where the city handles its quiet business. Loretta arrived 45 minutes before the meeting. She wore a charcoal grey pantsuit. She wore the same work jacket, the same inner pocket, the same laminated card. She sat at the head of the table. Nadine sat to her left with 3 thick folders and a yellow legal pad. Neither of them said a word as the others arrived. Fain walked in first. He was relaxed. He was carrying a leather portfolio under his arm. He had brought his personal attorney, a man named Rupert Vass. Vass was 62, grey hair, expensive watch, a face that had settled 14 things in this exact building over the last decade. Fain expected this to be a mediation. He expected Loretta to ask for an apology and maybe a procedural review. He had a written response already drafted in his portfolio. He had a settlement number in mind. He had done this before. Brandt came in second. She did not look at anybody. She sat down 2 chairs away from Fain. She put her hands flat on the table. She kept them there. Callahan came in last. He was in his patrol uniform. His hat was in his hand. He looked 12 years old in that room. He sat down at the far end of the table. He did not look up. Loretta let the room sit in silence for a full 30 seconds. Then she reached into the inner pocket of her jacket. She pulled out the laminated card. She placed it flat on the table in front of her, face up. She did not say what it was. She did not explain. She just let them all look at it. Fain's jaw tightened. Vass leaned forward and squinted. He read it twice. He sat back in his chair. He set down his pen. Loretta opened a black binder in front of her. She turned to page 7 of the safe dismissal. Budget authorization. She read the paragraph aloud. Slowly, every word, her voice was steady. She did not raise it. She did not slow down. She did not put any anger into it. She read it like she was reading a recipe. When she finished, she closed the binder. She nodded to Nadine. Nadine opened her first folder. She pulled out 9 sheets of paper. She walked around the table and placed 1 sheet in front of every person in the room. Fain, Vass, Brandt, Callahan. Each sheet was a copy of a rerouting form. Each one had Cecily Brandt's signature. On the bottom right, 9 forms, 9 complaints. 9 times the legal oversight chain had been broken on purpose. Loretta let everybody read the sheets. She did not rush them. Then she looked up. She looked directly at Brandt. She asked 1 question. Lieutenant, Brandt, can you tell me whose authority you believed you were acting under when you rerouted these complaints away from this office? The room got very quiet. Brant's mouth opened. No sound came out. She turned her head slowly to the right. She looked at Fane. Her eyes were asking for something. They were asking him to step in to take the hit, to say what they had agreed he would say if it ever came to this. Fane did not look back at her. He kept his eyes on the laminated card on the table in front of Loretta. He did not say a word, his jaw locked. His hand on the table closed into a fist and then opened again. That was the moment. That was when Cecily Brant understood that the man she had protected for 9 years had just decided to let her drown. She was alone in that room. The alliance was over. She put her hands back flat on the table. She did not answer the question. She did not have an answer that was going to save her. Loretta looked at Callahan next. He was still staring at the laminated card. He had not spoken a single word since he sat down. He was 26 years old. He was doing the math on 8 months of choices. He was looking at his career evaporating in front of him in real time. His hat shook in his hand. Loretta did not raise her voice once. She did not need to. She closed the black binder. She slid a typed memo across the table to Fane. It was titled, Recommendation for Administrative Action. She had signed it that morning. The memo went straight to the city manager and the mayor. It bypassed every desk Fane controlled. It moved without him. Fane picked up the memo. He read it. His face did not change, but his shoulders dropped. Just an inch. Just enough that Nadine, sitting across the table from him, caught it. She made a small mark on her yellow legal pad. The meeting ended at 10:47 a.m. It lasted 43 minutes. Nobody shook hands on the way out. Within 48 hours, Officer Dwight Callahan was placed on administrative suspension without pay. 3 weeks later, he was formally terminated. The charge was conduct unbecoming with procedural violations cited under the Safe Dismissal Oversight Charter. He was 26 years old. He had been a police officer for less than a year. He will not work in law enforcement in Nash County for the rest of his life. The records will follow him. He went home and told his mother. He did not finish the sentence. Lieutenant Cecily Brant got the harder fall. The deliberate rerouting of official complaints away from a chartered oversight body is a criminal matter under North Carolina General Statute 143-318. It is not just a policy violation, it is a public records violation that carries possible jail time. The city attorney referred her case to the State Bureau of Investigation. She was placed on indefinite suspension. Her badge was collected. Her city email was shut off. Rupert Vass, who had walked into Conference Room B as Fane's attorney, quietly told Fane he could not keep him on as a client. He took Brant's case instead. The line of who was worth saving had been redrawn. Deputy Chief Norbert Fane resigned 14 days. After the meeting, his resignation letter cited personal reasons. It was 3 sentences long. The Rocky Mount Telegram broke the story on a Sunday morning front page. Above the fold, his photograph was right next to the headline. His city council campaign had already spent $34,000 on preliminary work. Within 72 hours of the story going public, his campaign committee dissolved. His donors asked for their money back. The napkin in his desk drawer with his slogan on it stayed in his desk drawer. Sylvia Drummond, the parent who had filmed 47 seconds in the parking lot, watched the Telegram story go up that Sunday morning from her kitchen table. She read it twice. Then she pulled out her phone. She found the video she had taken 3 days later. She contacted a news producer at the Raleigh ABC affiliate. She submitted the footage. It aired Wednesday night. By Thursday morning, it was on national feeds. The video of Brianna standing alone on that curb with Festus Okafor crouched beside her became the image that carried the story across the country. Festus Okafor did not know he had been in the video until a co-worker showed it to him on her phone in the teacher's lounge. He sat down. He watched it twice. He did not say anything. The next week, the city council passed a unanimous resolution recognizing him for his actions that afternoon. The mayor presented him with a framed certificate. The school district raised his pay grade. The local Rotary Club gave him a check for $2,000. He used most of it to take his own daughter to see her grandmother in Lagos for the first time in 4 years. What was restored to Loretta is not something a press release can fully restore, but the city issued a formal written apology. On official letterhead, signed by the mayor, the safe dismissal program was suspended pending a complete independent audit. 2 weeks after the meeting in Conference Room B on a Tuesday afternoon, Loretta drove down Sunset Avenue. She parked under the sweet gum tree. She walked to the curb. She waited for Brianna's class to come out. No officer approached her. The spot where they used to stand was empty. Brianna walked out of the school. She saw her mother. She ran across the grass with her pink backpack bouncing. On her shoulders, Loretta knelt down and caught her. She held her for a long time. The other parents in the line saw it. Nobody said anything. They did not have to. This is what the story is really about. It is not about one bad cop in a parking lot. It is not even about one corrupt deputy chief. It is about what it takes to be a black woman in this country who is qualified, credentialed, educated, accomplished, and still gets asked to prove she belongs there. In a school pickup line, in a grocery store, in a bank, in the room where her own promotion is being decided. The exhaustion of having to prove it over and over again is the real injury. Most people do not get to fight it, because most people do not have a laminated card in their pocket that flips the whole table. Most people just have to carry it the way Odessa carried it. After everything was settled, after the news stories had stopped running, Loretta drove out to her mother's house on a Sunday afternoon. Odessa is 73 years old now. She has been retired for 12 years. She lives alone in the same brick house Loretta grew up in. Loretta sat down at the kitchen table. She did not tell her mother every detail of what had happened. She did not tell her about Conference Room B. She did not tell her about Brandt's shaking hand. She did not tell her about Fane's face when he read the memo. She just pulled the city's written apology out of a manila envelope and slid it across the table. Odessa. Read it once, slowly. Her finger followed the lines. When she got to the end, she folded it carefully along the original crease. She held it in both hands for a moment. Then she handed it back to her daughter. She looked at her across the table. "Put that somewhere safe," she said. That was all she said. 39 years of waiting, 39 years of carrying something she was not allowed to put down. And in the space between those two sentences, you could hear all of it finally exhale. I want to be honest with you for a minute before I let you go. I do not know who is watching this video tonight, but I know somebody out there has been carrying something that looks a lot like what Odessa carried. Somebody got pulled over once and never got an answer. Somebody got followed in a store and went home and told nobody. Somebody got passed over for a promotion they earned and watched somebody else walk in and take it. Somebody got handcuffed in front of their kid and is still trying to figure out how to explain it to them. Somebody had a parent who carried something just like this and never said a word about it until they were old, and you spent years wondering what the silence cost them. I want you to hear me. The card in Loretta's pocket is not magic. The magic is that she did not put it down. She did not stop carrying it just because the world stopped looking. The magic is that her mother kept her gradebook on her passenger seat the day she was pulled over, because she was a teacher, and being a teacher mattered to her, and no officer was going to take that away from her even if he tried. The magic is that ordinary black women in towns like Rocky Mount and Selma and Yazoo City and Anniston and Lumberton have been keeping receipts for generations. They have been writing it down. They have been notarizing it. They have been holding on to it. even when it cost them, even when nobody was reading. If something in this story touched you, do me one favor, hit that like button. Share this with somebody who needs to know that the receipts do still matter, and subscribe to this channel. I will see you in the next one.